This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fyodor III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores what makes one want to live in the D. Today's guest is an Emmy-nominated television producer and creator of the Light Up Detroit theme song and campaign, a University of Michigan alumnus who served as strategic planner for Coca-Cola and manager of the interactive media division for WDIV-TV. He has produced 3 record albums and numerous music videos. He also was the video producer for the Michigan football and basketball and earned a coveted Emmy nomination as the producer of the farewell salute to the late coach Bo Schembechler, which aired on WDIV-TV. The DDP welcomes Gerry Zonca. Welcome, Gerry.
Hi,
Glad
thanks.
to have you here today.
Glad to be here.
Okay. So you're originally from Detroit, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what side of town did you grow up on?
Grew up on the west side, Warren and Southfield area.
Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to University of Detroit High School, which is now U of D Jesuit.
Yep, right there on 7 Mile now. Okay. So what was your experience like growing up in Detroit?
Pretty good. I came from a family of 6, played a little sports, fought with my sisters, and just, really loved the city. My first job out of high school, or out of Michigan actually, was working for Detroit Coca-Cola. And started out in merchandising, then became an account executive, and then manager of strategic planning and branding. So everything I've done from University of Detroit to Detroit Coca-Cola to Channel 4 Detroit has been just nothing but Detroit. So 2 things I love, Detroit and Michigan.
Oh, well, that's what we got.
Go Blue.
That's why you got you on the pod.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you're also an alumnus of the University of Michigan. What did you study at U of M?
Marketing. And
Okay.
as soon as I fell in love with marketing, boom, first opportunity, invited by Coca-Cola to apply for a job, and just jumped on it. And working for Michigan first in the big block M as a logo, and then the Coca-Cola logo, and then Channel 4 and NBC. I've been really lucky to be able to work for 3 great entities with really, really big brands.
Yeah, right here in the city. So how did your experience at U of M influence or direct your career development?
How did it?
How did your experience at U of M as a student at U of M influence your career direction?
I just try to do a little bit of everything, and I explored the idea of working for the student radio station, even though I had a terrible voice, no experience, but somehow I thought that media was going to go and be a part of my future, media and marketing. So actually, Paul W. Smith, who is the morning person on WJR, he and I went to school together, and we had back-to-back shows on WRCN radio, which was an AM station, and it was fed through the cable network. And I learned a little bit about programming and running a show, and it was pretty interesting. I had a very small audience, but I got a lot of experience. And then while in school, for some reason, I started taping all the broadcasts of the Michigan football games with Bob Ufer. Okay. And kept up a collection of those things on cassette tapes. And he found out about it and contacted me and another person who had a collection, and we decided to make a record album. Okay. And Michigan had gone to the Rose Bowl, and we made a record album called Run for the Roses with Bo Schembechler. And it actually was put on display at Briarwood Mall at Recordland store back then on vinyl, and side-by-side displays with Michael Jackson's Thriller album, which had just been released. Okay. And the store manager came up to me 3 months in, and he said, you're outselling Michael Jackson's Thriller album 2-1.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, this is pretty crazy. So one thing led to another, and I ended up getting involved in video, which started coming out at the time with Betamax and VHS. And we ended up televising the Michigan football banquet. And I learned skills of television. So, I kind of like accidentally fell on the radio, accidentally fell into television. And then Michigan won the national championship in basketball in 1989. And Bill Frieder called me and he said, hey, I want you to go and promote my team too, not just Bo. So I'm making videos and highlight reels for Bo, and I'm doing the same thing now for basketball. And then the Fab Five comes in, and they blow the town up, and I'm right in the center of it, and I'm making all the highlight videos for the season-ending banquet at Chrysler Arena. And the one I did that really became magical was Whitney Houston had just come out with One Moment in Time. And so I took that soundtrack and I cut all the highlights to it, and they opened up Chrysler Arena, put about 5,000 people in there. And this was very early on where video projection screens had just come into play technologically. So we put up 3 giant video screens in Chrysler Arena, and I had this 3/4-inch video player, and everybody said, and now for a special presentation, this is One Moment in Time by Whitney Houston as a salute to Michigan basketball, national championships. And I started pressing the play button. I said, please, this has got to work. Otherwise, I'm ruined. And I played it, and people were crying. Wiping tears, applauding. It was unbelievable. I felt like I was some kind of rock star, a concert. Yeah. And it just lit me up to see that, a little 3-minute tape borrowing somebody's song and some highlights could have such an emotional impact on people. Okay. So that really, really got things going. And then that led into me doing some work for Channel 4. And then one day, one of my friends who worked for the station told me, he said, Gerry, you ought to go to the station manager and produce a television show. You got the skill level. I said, I don't know a thing about TV. And he said, yeah, sure you do. You've been making all these videos, and television is just a bunch of video with commercials in between to pay for it. So it kind of resonated, and they announced in 1989 that Bo Schembechler was going to resign finally and become the president of the Detroit Tigers. Yeah. Tom Monahan hired him. And so I went to the station manager and I said, I'm a little bit of a U of M historian. 50 years ago, next month, Fielding H. Yost, our greatest football coach, winning his coach like a Newt Rockne, he was honored by U of M and all the leaders of industry and sports with this fabulous banquet on campus at the Waterman Gymnasium back then. And that was 1949. And radio had just come out. And they called it the Coast to Coast Toast to Fielding Yost.
Okay.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
So they aired it on the NBC radio network. And they had microwave relays to get over the mountains to broadcast to California and all over the country. Because we didn't have cable, we didn't have internet, we didn't have satellites, nothing. So microwave was the only thing. So I went to Alan Frank at Channel 4 and I said, Alan, I just need 15 minutes with you. And so he granted me a meeting. I walk in there with this big styrofoam model of Cobo Hall Exposition Center where they have the auto show. And I said, this is exactly 50 years since NBC Radio broadcast the greatest sports banquet in NCAA history, saluting the Michigan coach who was retiring. And now we've got Bo Schembechler in your NBC television. And I just let that hang. And I could see his eyes dilate. I said, we got to televise this. And I built this football field inside Cobo Hall. Yard lines, goalposts, the university helped. We had a Goodyear blimp. We brought in Jim Harbaugh from the Chicago Bears, Keith Jackson from ABC, Dan Dierdorf as the MC from CBS, the governor, Bobby Knight from Indiana, Joe Paterno, Penn State, Reggie McKenzie, all the greatest, people. And I even brought in Bo Derek,
Oh,
the
okay.
perfect 10. And we dressed her up in a Rose Bowl jersey with the number 10 on it. And we had the band come through, the M Club Support You Band. We reenacted a football game,
Yeah.
but what we did is instead of running plays, we ran speeches of tribute to Bo. And it was huge, 2,000 people there. You were seated on the yard lines. The waiters and waitresses had referee outfits and flags, and they'd blow a whistle, and they'd flag somebody for eating their peas with a fork or getting gravy on the tablecloth. It was crazy.
It's cool. So, how did you transition from all of that into the music industry, the music business?
Well, let's see, how did this all happen? I ended up leaving the projects with Channel 4 and moving from Ann Arbor to Dearborn. And I saw 10 years ago a CNN news report with video footage of Lebanon being bombed out. They had a big war with Syria, I think. And they were comparing it to Detroit. And they were showing all these scenes of Lebanon being destroyed in buildings just decimated, and then contrasted that with buildings in Detroit, homes, neighborhoods. And it just sickened me. And I sometimes get emotional about it. And I said, somebody has got to go and have a campaign to lift everybody up. We were in bankruptcy. Everything was going bad. And I said, we need to lift up Detroit and brighten it up. So I jumped in the shower, and I just started tapping my feet, and I was trying to come up with, slogans. We've got to work together. We got to make a difference. We got to brighten up Detroit. We got to lift up Detroit. We got to shout it out. And then I said, we got to light up Detroit with spirit and passion. So I jumped out of the shower and I just started writing rhyming verses. And I had a song within 20 minutes, and I'm not a songwriter. I took it to a producer friend of mine who was the keyboardist for Martha Reeves. He cut a track, and then we ended up getting it recorded. And we brought in the great Tasha Page, gospel singer. I don't know if you know her. And she did a demo version of it. And one thing led to another. And then I found Beth Griffith, who you see on Channel 4 quite a lot, who sang on The Voice. And she was the first singer. And then we got one from American Idol, one from we got the Detroit Youth Choir from America's Got Talent, Thornetta Davis. We got all these singers, performing it, and it blew up. And then suddenly everybody was coming to me for marketing advice as to how to brand their music. So the entire black music community was coming to this white guy from U of M who knew nothing about music, didn't play any instrument, couldn't sing, but had all this marketing and branding experience, and said, hey, can you do something for me? And one thing led to another, and I started doing the promotion and marketing for a lot of top
people.
Artists. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what's it feel like to have been nominated for an Emmy?
Pretty crazy. Just to make a distinction, there are two kinds of Emmy awards. They're both the same award, the same statue, but there's a national award for national television broadcasts, and then there's a local award for regional ones. So there's a State of Michigan, State of New York Emmy Awards. It's chapters. And the ceremony, is the same, and they have just all the best people from local television stations all around the state. So we submitted the Salute to Bo Schembechler show, and it got nominated, and I'm watching TV on the news, and it said, my name and one of 5 nominees at the station who got nominated. So went to a black tie affair. We had these 10-foot high golden statues. I mean, all the who's who. They brought in people from Hollywood as celebrity guests, and it was pretty cool. So
does getting nominated for an Emmy change your perspective on production? I mean, how do you view your career after that? I mean,
well,
did you get, does it inflate your ego? Does it make you feel validated, or some people are recognizing your work? How does it make you feel?
No ego. I've never had an ego about any accomplishments because I think everything's done with a team anyway.
Yeah.
And so all the trophies I ever got in sports, I used to just put them in a box in the basement. Never thought about, never liked attention. I didn't like to ever be in front of the camera. But when you get any kind of award or, like when singers have a hit album, people just start coming to you.
Yeah.
And fame breeds fame, and it just, puts you on a different level, and it just gave me access to businesses and media and sponsors and all kinds of things. And, I could just go and say, here's my resume, I'd like to request a meeting to discuss something. Oh, sure. And that's how it works.
Get you in.
The difference between somebody who's famous and somebody who isn't is oftentimes not talent. Whitney Houston, if she didn't have the hit song and get famous, would not have blown up. And if she didn't have the connection with Clive Davis, or, different people are hooked in with, certain connections a level or two above them, and they get a door open, and that's the difference. I mean, people are successful because of opportunities, connections, somebody liking you. And so, knowing that, it was a lot of fun for me to go back to the music community here in Detroit and say, hey, listen, you're as good as some of these people who are top recording artists. You just don't have a brand. You don't have any marketing. You don't have an agency. If you had a label behind you, you'd be where they are. So I became like the little label and the consultant for a lot of these artists. And so, it's a lot of fun. But the Emmy is really what, blew it up. When you have Michigan, Coca-Cola, and an Emmy nomination, hello.
That makes a good resume.
Yeah.
So as you made the transition from video producer to music producer, how did that affect your creative process?
I really wish I could back up the clock, Fiotis, and I wish I would have learned how to play the piano. I wish I would have gotten into music. I wish I would have. I would just love to produce music, more than anything else. I love television because it's got viewers and scale, and it's dynamic because it's two mediums where music is just one. It's all audio. But I think what ended up happening is that because I didn't end up staying in the television business, I ended up, just trying to go and produce things like the D-Drop and different opening ceremonies for the U.S. Navy with the USS Detroit, the Grand Prix, Detroit Music Awards, Miss America, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So what I, really like is doing production, I think, overall, whether it's music, television, video, or event production.
Okay. Are there any musicians that you aspire to work with or really would love to work with or produce a song with?
Well, right now, when I did my Light Up Detroit song, I had an interesting challenge, and I drew upon my U of M marketing background, and I said, look, nobody's going to go and hire us to perform one song or pay us to do one song, Light Up Detroit. So I said, I've got to turn this thing into a production. So to give it integrity, I had the status of the whole Emmy thing in Channel 4, and I contacted Kern Brantley, Beyonce's music director. I got Dwight Adams, Stevie Wonder's trumpeter, Nick Stone, who toured with, played sax for Charlie Wilson, Keith Ferguson, the keyboardist for the Spinners, drummer for the Four Tops. I got people who played with Lady Gaga, with Mary J. Blige, with, just all the top musicians. And I asked them, we don't have a budget, but I want to do a master recording of this song. Everybody said yes. Didn't want money, paid for their gas, didn't want lunch, no gift, nothing. It was amazing. And a lot of, three of the guys were from U of M,
Okay.
U of M alum. And so that, helped blow the song up. And then I contacted Aretha Franklin's choreographer, and she brought in a bunch of dancers, and we backed that all up, and we put on a show, and it took off.
Are you working on any new musical projects or anything?
Yeah,
like
something
that?
really, really big. Just like that whole thing with Lebanon, and spurred me to do the Light Up Detroit thing. The George Floyd choking, I really reacted to that, like so many people did. And, again, I just kind of said, hey, we need another Heal the World song, type of thing. So I started writing down lyrics. And again, I have no idea where this stuff comes from because I'm not a songwriter.
Obviously, you are.
Well,
You're writing songs.
Um,
That's all it takes.
I write poetry, and good musicians put music to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wrote a song called We Are One World. And the hook is, and again, it draws specifically from that time period, if you recall, 2 years ago, when George Floyd got choked, Trump was being the worst he could possibly be. We were heading, towards economic problems. There was just so much, conflict in the world, police issues, with racism and in violence to urban communities. So the hook was, we are one world, we are better when everybody works as one. And it's got a heal the world kind of flavor to it, but I took it to a musician friend I knew in New York, and he loved it, and he happened to be the keyboardist for Jennifer Holliday. And he said, I'm going to go and score this thing like it's a symphony orchestra for you for free. And it was like, wow. So we spent 3 months on it, and we got this song. I took it to the Super Bowl, and I couldn't get it into the halftime show, but the Super Bowl Gospel Explosion in BET wanted to air it. And COVID came, and they had to cancel the broadcast and do everything pre-taped. So I'm taking it back to the Super Bowl and to Nike and to Coca-Cola, and we want to do a global campaign where we get the mayors of major cities to go and nominate kids who are teenagers who do community service and have a huge impact on their city. It could be, a lemonade stand for Vietnam veterans. It could be helping in a nursing home, cleaning up your neighborhood, raising funds for Salvation Army. And we're going to pick, hopefully, if this all works out, 5 nominees from every city, and they will be given a custom Nike shoe with their name on it, and We Are One World, and nobody else can get them. And Coca-Cola will fit them out with gear and give them free Coke, and Nike will give them gear, and we're going to, just try to take this to cities across America and then globally, and maybe even get somebody like President Obama to get behind it. So trying to think as big as possible. But if we get Nike, the Super Bowl, or it could even be something like the Rose Bowl, the NBA championship game. If somebody gives us a big platform with this song, and sponsors get behind it, it could have an incredible impact. So Light Up Detroit had an impact on Detroit, and I want to try to get We Are One World to go a little higher.
Okay. So you're speaking of Light Up Detroit and everything. Can you tell us more about the upcoming New Year's Eve D-Drop?
Yeah, we haven't formally announced it yet, but it's going to be at Campus Martius and surrounding area, and we've got a 120-foot, 12-story truss tower and a big 7-foot diameter ball, and we've got a lot of talent that's going to be performing. Planet Fitness just came on board as a major sponsor, and they're going to give out 500 beach balls, and we're going to create the Detroit Planet Fitness Beach Ball Blasts in 20-degree weather, just to be kooky.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've had the Detroit Youth Choir there. We've had singers from Empire, American Idol, The Voice. So we're going to load it up with a lot of talent. Be an indoor party in a giant tent, outdoor party on stage, and Fago gives out 10,000 light tubes, those foam light tubes, and we wave it while a singer performs Light Up Detroit.
Okay. So how are you going to promote this event?
Oh,
How would Detroiters find out about it?
We get something like $6 million worth of measured media coverage.
Okay.
All the TV stations do features on it, social media, $10,000 media campaign. It's about a $200,000 production for 5 hours. So it's our version of Times Square.
Yeah.
So
Sounds great. So I'm curious. So what makes a good production?
What makes a good production? Probably very first thing is a great idea that's universally appealing or strategically appealing to a small target audience. Then a strong brand, something that's kinetic, that gives dynamism, whether it's, some kind of dance production, theatrical production, visual effects, just experiential things. The thing about marketing is that, they always used to say you could sell a carton of spoiled milk if you had a good brand and a strong media campaign, and then the customer wouldn't find out till they drank it. But marketing is so powerful. You see that with music stars and movies like Avatar. Everything comes down to inspiring people. And my motive for inspiring people came from Bo Schembechler. I was walking one day through the football training center, and I saw him yelling at a player, "You're better than this. You're Michigan. You're a leader. You're the best. You've got to be exceptional. So why are you dragging on the field? You're not executing well. I know you got more potential." And he just got in his face, and it was pretty hostile. Bo used to put on this whole act, and then he'd turn over to the media and he'd wink at him and laugh like, he's just plain General Patton. But when I saw how he motivated people and got results, I kind of, always wanted to go and be somebody who could inspire people with, words, music, video, television, or just, motivation. So you're doing that, You're a coach to everybody out there in the viewing audience, and you're sharing all these guests and their experiences and giving them motivation to like, hey, if that person can do it with no experience and produce a record album, produce television shows, videos, and big productions, anybody, I can do it. So
that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish.
there you go.
Here.
There you go.
Okay. So, do you have anything after the D drop? You have any other upcoming projects? Anything new productions coming
Yeah.
down in the pipe?
I like to shoot for impossible things. So I wrote this screenplay, no experience with that either.
Okay.
And I wrote a film called The Dance of Life, and it's a metaphor for what everybody goes through with challenges and inspiration. And originally, I earmarked the characters to be Morgan Freeman playing the lead role, Beyonce, and Justin Timberlake. And it's a dance movie about a black hip-hop girl who goes to Wayne State and a white ballroom dance guy who does Dancing with the Stars kind of stuff, who goes to Michigan.
Okay.
And Beyonce goes to a tailgate party at the U of M Michigan State game because Wayne State doesn't have that kind of atmosphere that you and I know from going to U of M. And they go to a party afterwards at some club, and she sees Justin Timberlake. He's a club stud, and he's doing all this swing dancing. And then she gets up on the floor with her girlfriends, and they start doing hot urban hip-hop. And he sees her, and he's like the dude, okay?
Yeah.
The John Travolta. And he comes up to her and he says, "Oh, God, I saw you dance. You're really, really good." And she said, "Oh, well, you are too." And they introduce themselves, and basically in the process she says, "Hey, you're doing swing like my grandfather does." And he says, "How'd you know that was swing?" She says, "Oh, my grandfather dances swing." "Who's your grandfather?" And she gives a name, as most famous swing dancer from the back Lindy era,
Yeah.
when they used to flip girls around.
Oh yeah.
And suddenly there's this connection, a triangle between the three. So anyway, I'm not going to give away the whole plot, but the script's almost done. But in the process, a friend of mine mentioned it to Morgan Freeman when he was visiting him down at his club in Mississippi. He's got a blues club.
Okay.
And he told him the basic plot. And Morgan says to him, "Tell your friend Gerry to write me directly, send me the script here. Don't send it to my agent because it might not get to me.
Yeah.
Tell him I'm interested in the lead role."
Oh wow.
And I freaked out. So I got to get this thing done, and I got a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
But instead of having Beyonce and Justin, they're aged out. They wouldn't fit college-age students. We're going to try to get Shawn Mendes and one of the Chloe and Halle. They'd be a perfect combination.
Okay.
And the idea being that if we get, two pop singers, they can go and do the soundtrack, make the soundtrack a hit. The soundtrack promotes the film promotes the soundtrack.
Yeah.
You get synergy, and boom, see you later.
You are pretty good at
we'll
this.
see what
You got
happens.
some
We'll
really
see-
good ideas.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
I might have a role for you, Fio.
Hey,
As a radio announcer.
I'm ready. Let me know. Okay, we're going to transition on to what we call our lightning round questions.
Oh, boy.
And the lightning round is we switched up the questions a little bit this year, but and you are our first guest for season 3.
Oh, wow.
So we ask each guest the same questions. We're trying to build up the back catalog so people can see. But these questions are more about your experience in and around the city of Detroit. And it's what is your Coney Island order?
American Coney Island. Coney with a lot of chili, French fries, and a Coke.
Okay. Who was your favorite Detroit athlete?
Barry Sanders.
Okay. Verner's or Canada Dry?
Verner's.
Okay. Detroit pizza or traditional pan pizza? The Detroit pizzas that 8 square,
the square?
square crust.
I
deep
like
dish.
all pizza, frankly, but I'd say Detroit pizza.
Okay. Your favorite Motown artist?
Stevie Wonder.
Favorite place to go in the city?
Campus Martius. I religiously that's, an island of inspiration for me.
Okay. Favorite Detroit team?
Wow. Probably the, yeah, that's a hard one. Well, I was at the World Series in 1967 to see the Tigers win, so I'd probably have to say that.
Tiger. There's no wrong choices.
Oh,
We
okay.
just get out there. Well, those are all the questions.
I can still get into grad school by passing this test.
Oh,
right?
definitely. Well, those are all the questions that we have for you. We want to thank you again for taking the time to join us on the Distinctly Detroit podcast.
Appreciate it.
Really think your work is really cool and interesting. And I think you have a great story. I'd like to say the production it relates to, resonates with me strongly because we do productions around here all the time.
Sure.
So I understand everything you're going through. But thank you for coming out and joining us. And thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is the first episode of season 3 of the Distinctly Detroit podcast. We want to thank our team for putting this production together. We want to thank Slow's Barbecue for their continued support. And we'll see you next time. Oh, please listen to us anywhere you get your pods. Rate, listen, subscribe. This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast. And
And
we'll
go
see you
blue.
next time. And go blue.
You got to end that.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center, and you can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please rate, review, and subscribe. This podcast is directed and produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Taylor Henniger, with writing contributions by James Neely and Leah Allen. Thank you for listening.